The streak is over. After predicting main event after main event correctly, I finally fall to Brandon Raw Dog Royval. Brandon Royval fights Brandon Moreno to a split decision victory, and this is a decision that I honestly disagree with. The first decision of the year, at least for the high profile fights that I disagree with. I was going to do a who really won video, but I don't think that it's actually super necessary to do because the scorecards are all over the place. I would have to go through every single round, and I just don't have the time or the willpower to do that, especially with the insane amounts of volume that Brandon Royval was throwing. So let's just go through the scorecards. Round 1 I think is a clear Brandon Moreno round. Round 2, I also think Brandon Moreno won that round. Rounds 3 and 4, I think Royval won those 2 rounds. And round 5, I thought Moreno won that round. We can see the judges' scorecards are crazy. Just every single round being disputed except for round 5 where Moreno wins it. And ultimately, 2 out of the 3 judges gave it to Royval. And this is another one of those funny scenarios where if you average out the rounds on each of the judges' scorecards, Moreno would actually win. So for round 1, Moreno wins 2 out of the 3. So Moreno wins round 1. Round 2, Royval wins 2 out of the 3. Royval wins round 2. Round 3, Moreno wins 2 out of the 3 rounds. Moreno wins round 3. Round 4, Royval wins all of the rounds. And round 5, Moreno wins that. So if you average it out round by round, Moreno wins rounds 1, 3, and 5. Again, the judges' scorecards were all over the place. I think the only definitive rounds are Moreno round 1 for sure, Moreno round 5 for sure. I don't think there's much of an argument that can be made otherwise. So what happened in this fight? Moreno starts off going pretty slow, just like using a lot of footwork, taking it easy, starts landing big overhand rights on Royval. Royval is just relentless with his offense. Moreno starts finding vulnerabilities in Royval's leg kicking defense, finishing his combinations with leg kicks, and it just ended up being an extremely close back and forth fight. Again, I think that Moreno easily wins round 1. I thought he easily won round 5 too, with just his clinch work and landing big overhand rights. And then when rounds 2, 3, and 4 are open to interpretation, I personally would give Moreno round 2 and Royval rounds 3 and 4. So I predicted Brandon Moreno to win by decision, and I don't regret my prediction because it was extremely close. And regardless of what the judges say, I do think that my prediction came true, where Moreno was able to do the better work over the course of the fight. If I was judging the fight, I would give it to Moreno. In what areas was my prediction wrong? Brandon Royval did do a ton of work on his anti-wrestling game. Moreno was able to get him down a few times, but he was not able to hold him down for any long periods of the fight. And I think I just really underestimated Royval's cardio and ability to put a pace on guys. He was really starting to pick up steam against Pantoja in their championship fight, and ultimately Pantoja's grappling was the answer to this relentless offense that Royval puts out on guys. And his offense isn't devastating by any means, but it does pose problems for his opponents. And even if he's not going to knock you out, he can definitely win rounds through just his constant jabbing and throwing of punches. I also think Royval's kicks did hurt Brandon Moreno on multiple occasions throughout the fight, which really slowed Moreno down. Big respect to Brandon Moreno. He was able to tough it out and win round 5. In the end, it just wasn't enough. And again, it's kind of funny, like if we look at the judges' scorecards, I think that you can label this fight a robbery, because if Chris Lee gives round 1 to Moreno, he wins the fight, which I think, I'm really surprised that someone didn't give Moreno round 1. But it was interesting. It was a close fight. I mean, both guys are very good. I wouldn't say Moreno is washed by any means, but he did look a little listless in the first few rounds of that fight. Gotta give him credit for turning it on at the end, but unfortunately the judging just wasn't on his side that night. So we are down a prediction. Next week is Gaziev versus Rosenstrike, so that's gonna be a fight, not super looking forward to that main event. But this was a fun card. Brian Ortega came back in a big way, surviving a first round devastating onslaught from Yair Rodriguez, arguably a 10-8 round from Yair, beating the hell out of Ortega, dropping him multiple times, landing ground and pound. I think that there can be an argument made that Yair kind of punched himself out in round 1 and just tired himself out trying to finish Ortega. But again, Yair has no grappling defense at all, and Ortega was really able to just put a pace on him in rounds 2 and 3, ultimately finishing him with a arm triangle in round 3. I would say that's a decent performance from Ortega. I wouldn't put too much stock into this performance because, again, Yair has no ground skills, and Ortega got his ass handed to him on the feet. So other than just having a good chin, being tough, being able to take a big shot and keep coming forwards, I don't think there's that much to write home about for Ortega. It was a fun fight. I would definitely recommend people going back to watch it. Literally a 10-8 round in round 1 and for Yair, and then a 10-8 round in round 2 for Ortega is good indication that that fight was fun. Speaking of flyweights, there is a fun flyweight fight coming up next week with Alex Perez versus Mohamed Mokaev. That's something that I'm definitely going to be looking forward to. Alex Perez has stumbled against the top of the division lately, while Mohamed Mokaev has been slowly fighting his way up the division, having some good performances, some less than great performances. Also, Matt Schnell versus Steve Urseg is taking place next week. Steve Urseg is someone who's looked really good as of late at the flyweight division. Another good fight is Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzet. I'm not sure who this guy Bekzet is. It looks like he's making his UFC debut. Umar Nurmagomedov, of course, is the cousin of Habib, and he looked amazing against Ioni Barcelos in his last fight out. What other good fights are on this card? Vitor Petrino is someone who's looked good lately. Tyson Pedro. I think this is going to be a fun, just meathead fight at light heavyweight. Both these guys can crack. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. I'll be looking into that and coming out with a main event prediction video for the heavyweights. Umar Nurmagomedov is someone that I'm really looking forward to seeing more of. Other good fights on this card. Joel Alvarez has looked good, and he's fighting Ludovic Klein. That should be a fun lightweight fight. Ayman Zahabi versus Javid Bashrat. The Bashrat brothers are awesome. Definitely keep your eyes on them. Christian Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. Claudio Ribeiro just got knocked out by Roman Kopylov. Christian Leroy Duncan has looked fine in his last few fights. He's a little bit too fancy in terms of his fighting style for someone that I can really get behind. I think that there's a lot of flash and not a lot of substance with this guy. And looks like there's some other guys that are making their UFC debuts or just not very experienced in the UFC. I don't recognize these names. Loic has fought in the UFC before, and yeah, so some good prospects. These, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below, guys. Do you think that the UFC should be a place for these like 8-2 guys that are just gonna have like 1 or 2 fights in the UFC and drop out? Like, is that something that we should be really putting on UFC cards? Like, that seems to be what the majority of UFC cards is being made up of these days. I don't know as far as the past is concerned if this has always been a practice, but it definitely does feel like a slog to get through when we have 2 fighters that kind of everyone knows aren't really going to make it anywhere, and we're still just filling up the UFC prelims with them. But there are some good fights next week. I think that the main event is honestly like one of the worst fights on next week's card, but a lot of good undefeated prospects, so that should be fun. So let me know what you guys thought of the main event. Do you think that Moreno is finished as far as being a top-ranked flyweight is concerned? I think he's still got some juice left in the can. I think this is kind of a crossroads though. Like, is this Moreno falling off, or is this Royval stepping up and really declaring himself as a contender for the belt? I personally think it's a little bit of both. I think Moreno did look a little slower, and it seemed like he had to have a lot of pushing from his coach to get that fire ignited underneath him in the 5th round. I think this was Moreno's fight to lose, and unfortunately for him and for my record at picking main events, he did lose. So how did you guys have the fight scored? What fights are you looking forward to next week? Thank you for watching the video. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and have a great day. See ya.